Hello, thank you so much for joining me. This is the Solar 101 for the 2023 Quad Cities Solar Co-op. I'm particularly excited for this co-op. It's our first chance that Sun has had to work in the Quad Cities area of Arizona. We've hit multiple other places in the state before, but this is our first chance to be working in the Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, and Dewey-Humboldt area. So I am particularly excited. The goal of this presentation is to give you a base understanding of solar technology, solar economics, and financing. And then we'll dig into the specifics of the co-op process. This is a Solar 101, so I'm not going to be digging into too specific details here, but our team is available should you have any questions about any of the content that I'll be going over today. My name is Adrian Keller, and I'm the Arizona Program Director for Solar United Neighbors. I've been working with the organization for a little over a year now, and I've been in the climate and community organizing space for a little over 3 years now. As the Program Director for the state, I manage all of our co-op programming throughout Arizona, in addition to the policy and advocacy work that we do as well. Before I get into the presentation, though, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank our partners for all of their work so far in helping us build this co-op. Our partner organizations are crucial to assisting us with designing the co-op, with getting the word out, and organizing events that we do in the community. So we have the pleasure to be working this year with Sierra Club Yavapai Group, the Yavapai Climate Change Coalition, Interfaith Climate Action Team, and the Northern Arizona Climate Change Alliance. I sincerely appreciate everything that these partners have been able to do to help us get the co-op started in this area. And I know it's going to be a pleasure working with them as we go forward. So what is Solar United Neighbors? We are a vendor-neutral national 501c3 nonprofit. We have field staff in 12 states, as well as DC and Puerto Rico. We are not a solar installer. In fact, we're a vendor-neutral and a financing-neutral organization. We organize primarily around solar policy issues, and we focus on consumer advocacy, solar education, and outreach in the community. In brief, our mission is to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. Sun has been in this kind of work since 2007, when the very first Solar United Neighbors co-op started back in DC. Pictured on the screen here is our founder, Anya, as well as her son, Diego, and his friend, Walter. Walter and Diego saw an inconvenient truth. This was back in 2007. They came home and they said, "Mom, this is real. We got to do our part. We need to go solar. Can we look into this?" Anya did look into it and quickly found that going solar wasn't such an easy process. They were getting different information from different groups in DC. There were tax credits and financing options to figure out, and overall, just not a lot of front-facing consumer-friendly information to go solar. So as Anya began to figure out this process, she thought, hey, we may as well bring in some of our neighbors along to help us out too. Maybe we can even get a bulk discount if all of us go solar together at the same time. So Walter and Diego, they literally went door to door in their neighborhood, and they enlisted the help of about 50 of their neighbors to untangle this complicated solar process together. In the end, 45 of those homes ended up signing a contract to go solar. And ever since, Anya started getting calls from different neighborhoods in the area, and then even different organizations across the US, folks who wanting to do really similar work with bulk purchasing campaigns. And that is how Solar United Neighbors was born. Since 2007, really proud to say that we've been able to help over 7,800 families go solar. All combined, they've installed more than 67 megawatts of solar across the states that we work in. And that's helped save more than 868,000 tons of CO2. We've been in Arizona since 2019, and since that time, we've been able to help over 383 families go solar in the state. Together, they have installed more than 3 megawatts of capacity, investing more than $9 million in local solar and saving more than $15 million over the lifespan of their system. We estimate this has helped contribute to more than 54 good-paying local solar jobs in Arizona and helped to offset more than 40,000 metric tons of lifetime CO2. I love seeing these numbers tick up through every single co-op that we do. It's really exciting to see the impact that we're having in the state. Like I mentioned before, this is our first co-op in the Quad Cities area, so particularly excited to be working in a new region. As you can see on the map here, we've hit the 3 main metro areas of Arizona pretty well. We've had lots of co-ops in Maricopa County. This is our 3rd Tucson co-op that we just launched in January. And we've had a couple rounds in Flagstaff and Sedona as well. This will be our 13th co-op in the state. And is open to anybody in the Quad Cities area or immediately surrounding areas of Yavapai County. Something that I know is really important to this region of the state, and in fact, really all of the state and most of the West, is water consumption. I think this is something that doesn't get talked a lot about, but partners requested that I kind of throw this in here to the presentation. So this chart measures water consumption for electricity generation in gallons per megawatt hours. So this shows how much each electricity source is using, how many gallons of water they're using to generate 1 megawatt hour of electricity. So you can see here, nuclear, coal, and gas use a significant portion of water to be able to function. Principally, this is because they are requiring water to generate steam to turn a turbine, and they need a consistent flow of water to be able to do that. Contrast that with solar. You can see here it's less than 1 gallon to produce a megawatt hour of electricity. So certainly there are environmental reasons and carbon reasons to go solar. There's the economic and financial reasons to go solar, but something that doesn't get talked a lot about is the significant water savings that rooftop solar can have. So as Sun, we help lots of people go solar, both individually as well as through the co-op. We help individuals, families, small businesses, nonprofits, houses of worship, a list that is constantly growing. And we bring people together. That includes this Solar 101, our co-ops. We have solar tours, happy hours, lobbying days. We provide resources to help solar enthusiasts effectively advocate for their rights. And when I say energy rights, I mean things like community solar, making sure HOA members have access to rooftop solar, fighting for fair solar tax credits and fair compensation for excess solar that's produced. There's so many solar specific policies fights that we are engaged in across the US, but particularly right here in Arizona as well. So today we'll be covering solar technology, solar economics, and financing. And then we'll spend a little bit of time looking at how the specific co-op model works. First things first, solar technology. So like I said, this is a Solar 101. We're not going to be getting into too many specific details, but really helpful for folks to have a general understanding of what we're talking about. So how does a solar panel work? The short answer is magic. At least that's what it seems like sometimes. But when we're talking about solar panels, we're talking about solar photovoltaic or PV cells. This is the technology that converts solar energy into electricity. Solar thermal and solar hot water may have been, you may have heard of them, and they certainly still exist today. Solar hot water used to be a more popular technology back in the day, but today the vast majority of the solar market consists of PV cells. So that's what I'll be focusing on throughout this presentation. Solar panels are made out of semiconductor materials, mostly silicon these days. When photons from sunlight hit the solar panel, it will dislodge those electrons in the semiconductor material, generating a flow of electricity. Each solar panel is made up of individual solar cells, usually about 60 to 70 cells, depending on the panel. They're kind of sandwiched in between these two glass frames. Solar panels are, decently large. They're about 3.5 by 5 feet. So you definitely need enough space on your roof to be able to handle them. But when we put solar panels together, we'll refer to that as a solar array. To talk a little bit about how the system gets attached to your roof, they do get attached with a racking system. What you need to know is that there's generally a racking solution for most types of roof. Pictured here is this kind of general asphalt shingle roof that we see a lot of, where the Rails are screwed into the roof, and then the solar panels are clipped onto the beams. If you have a flat roof, your installer may ballast the panels down, basically weighing them down, or they may use a pitch pocket system so that the solar panels are angled upright just a little bit to be at the most optimal angle to be able to generate and absorb the most amount of energy. And then ground mounted solar can definitely be an option. This is something definitely people look into if their roof isn't a good site for solar. They don't have enough space, or there's some repairs that need to be made, or it's there's a lot of shading obstructions, then ground mounted solar can be an option. Space is definitely the name of the game here. You're definitely gonna need to have a decent amount of space to be able to install ground mounted solar. And also just keep in mind that ground mounted solar is a little bit more expensive than rooftop solar. Keep in mind, you'll have to design the equipment that is attaching it to the ground. And there are a variety of fixed costs associated with that, where it's usually a little bit cheaper to do rooftop solar, but definitely can be an option, particularly in more rural areas. And then you will need an inverter that's going to take that direct current energy and invert it into alternating current, AC, so that you can use it in your home and your home's appliances. Essentially two different types of inverters. You don't need to know the specifics of which inverter you want. Your installer is going to have a recommendation based off of the type of installation. But kind of the two typical options that we usually see, a string inverter can be great for a simple system where the modules are all in one or two arrays. String inverters will be fed through a central panel, and then all of your panels together through one central box. This can work really well for simpler installations where there's not a lot of shade. Micro inverters are basically doing the same thing, but on the individual panel level. They make the system work really efficiently. So if one panel isn't working so well, the other panels can kind of compensate to make sure that the system is producing as much as possible. Like I said, your installer is probably going to have a recommendation for which inverter is going to work best for your roof. But just to give you kind of an overview of the type of options you may see. And then to connect the solar to your home's electricity, it's usually a pretty simple connection to your electrical box. Most homes don't need an upgrade to be able to handle solar, but some will, especially if it's an older home or an older electrical panel. We always ask installers when they bid on our co-op how much that will cost if you need an electrical panel upgrade. It's really helpful to understand that information going in. And then thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, there are tax rebates available up to $4,000 if you do need an electrical panel replacement. So a really good kind of piece of information there. If you need a panel upgrade, that you can get some help from the feds on that, that will significantly help reduce your cost. And then some important terminology that we're going to be discussing throughout the presentation, just to make sure folks understand what everything means. A kilowatt, kW, is a unit of power. It's used to describe the size of the system in 1,000-watt increments. So 1,000 watts is 1 kilowatt. A system here, like pictured on the screen, that's made up of 10 350-watt panels. We'd refer to that as a 4.2 kilowatt system. Kilowatt hours, kWh, is a unit of energy. So that's what you see on your utility bills. It's also used to describe the amount of electricity your system is going to produce. In Arizona, the typical average system size for solar is about 7 kilowatts. So to fit everything together, you've got your beautiful solar panels installed on your roof or your ground-mounted solar system. They're absorbing sunlight and converting that into a flow of electricity. Your solar inverter is going to invert that electricity from direct current to alternating current so your home can use it. The electrical panel here, kind of think of as the brains of the operation. It's going to be directing power where it needs to go, when it needs to go. And then with solar, you'll have a bidirectional utility meter. So not only is this going to read and measure all the electricity that you're purchasing from APS into your home, it's also going to measure any excess solar that you're generating that's being fed back on to APS's grid. You may have heard of net metering. Net metering is a really important policy that has been the driver of rooftop solar in this country for many years. With net metering, essentially, it's going to track the flow of electricity to and from the customer. And if you're generating more power than you're using, that extra energy is credited back to your bill as net. And typically with historically like full net metering, that would be a 1-to-1 ratio. So APS would be paying you the same amount per kilowatt hour that they're charging you for electricity. Unfortunately, this system is going away in Arizona. So we now have a system called solar export rate credits. So APS essentially sets a specific rate per kilowatt hour that they will pay you for any excess solar generation that you're feeding back onto the grid. Unfortunately, this is no longer that 1-to-1 exchange. So the solar export rate credit is a little lower than you would have seen with net metering. But, side note, that's kind of an important policy that Solar United Neighbors is always looking out for. Our priority is to make sure that solar homeowners are being compensated fairly for the energy they produce. So certainly something that we're always pushing for wherever we can. APS has 2 solar rate plans. Pretty familiar probably if they're similar to what you may already have with APS. Excuse me. They're both time of use plans. So the exact charge for electricity is going to depend on the time of day, but also the time of year. So you can see there's kind of a range here in those off-peak energy charges. 4 to 7 p.m. Refers to peak energy. So that's when prices are the highest. And the main difference with these 2 plans is that one has a demand charge. A demand charge refers to the single highest energy usage on peak for that single highest hour that you're using the most electricity on peak. And that's going to be a singular charge per month. We've also got here your solar export rate credits. So that 8.47 cents per kilowatt hour. That's what APS pays you back for energy you feed back to the grid. And then there's going to be some various service fees on your bill as well. Typically, most solar customers with APS tend to just go with the simpler time of use plan without the demand charges. Even though electricity costs are a little bit higher, you're avoiding that demand charge, and that demand charge is something that's really difficult for solar to offset. So typically folks it's a little bit of a better financial solution to go with the simple time of use plan. Just a very rough kind of simple example of what a bill might look like with APS. Of course, it's going to vary depending on the size of your solar system and how much energy you consume. But you can see here, we've got 175 kilowatt hours of on-peak energy, 525 kilowatt hours of off-peak energy. So that's the main charge that you're going to be seeing from APS. Monthly fixed charges, they're going to depend a little bit, but around $13. You're going to have taxes of around $13, of course. And then your solar export credit, that 4235 figure in red. So that's getting credited back to your bill from APS. For this example, resulting in a net bill of about $89. So what makes a good roof for solar? The orientation of your roof is going to be really important here. So facing south is always going to be the best case solution. That's where you'll get the most amount of sun exposure, and you're going to be able to generate the most amount of power. Solar panels facing west can also work really well. So like we just discussed, that 4 to 7 peak pricing from APS. If you have solar panels on the west side of your home, you're going to be able to generate more electricity during that 4 to 7 p.m. hours, which is going to help reduce your overall bill even more. East facing can also work well, but we don't recommend putting solar on the north side of your home. You're going to want to make sure you don't have a very large tree or some other structure that is shading a lot of your roof where you're going to put the panel. If that is the case, you may want to consider trimming the tree, or if it's a tree you're really attached to, or that's not an option, solar may not be an option for you, or you may want to look into ground mounted solar if you've got lots of space on your property. But definitely shading is a consideration you're going to want to think about. And then space, like I mentioned, each solar panel is about 3.5 by 5 feet. So you're going to need to have enough roof space on your home to be able to accommodate the solar panels. When you sign up for the co-op, one of the cool things that we do is a free a free satellite roof review. So we'll take a look at your roof to see if there's any major obstructions or shading that we should know about. And that's just kind of a cool free pre-screening process that we do automatically when you sign up for the co-op. If the power goes out, the grid goes down, your solar will also shut off automatically. This is a safety mechanism built into the inverter. So if there is a downed power line somewhere that APS crews are working on, they don't want any solar, from your solar panels being fed back onto the grid that could result in a dangerous situation for crews working on downed power lines. So if you want to have power when the grid is down, you may want to consider looking into battery storage. Few reasons to consider battery storage. If you have frequent utility outages and you need a source of backup power, if you want to be able to power critical loads at home, so if you have a well pump that requires electricity, if you have medical equipment that requires electricity, definitely could be a good option for you. For general peace of mind during emergencies, for general disaster preparedness, this can be a really good option. And then increasingly, people are using batteries to help offset some of those peak prices from their utility. Pictured here is Amy. She went solar with our last Phoenix area co-op. She programs her battery so that her home is drawing from it from that 4 to 7 p.m. hours. During the next day, her solar recharges the battery with any excess it's producing. And this helps bring down her overall power bill even more. If you want to dig into some more specifics about battery storage, we have a great free guide on our website. You can download that at solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. And then here's another case example of somebody who finds use from a battery. So the Johnsons, they lose power several times a year. Each time the power is out, it's out for the entire day. What a pain. So they purchase a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery bank. It's fully recharged by their solar system daily. And if the sun isn't shining, they've got about a day's worth of power with that battery. The grid is down, that battery is going to be able to power their refrigerator and microwave, some lights and outlets, their cable modem, and a small window air conditioner. It's not going to have the juice to be able to power a stove, a dryer, or an electric water heater. So these are some of the most frequently asked questions that we get about solar panels here in Arizona. So I would love to kind of cover those right now. So warranties, typical installation is going to come with 3 different types of warranties. First, you've got your power production warranty. This is a warranty from the solar panel manufacturer that guarantees that by year 25, your system are still going to produce an expected amount of power that it did on year 1. So for example, we'll often see a 90% 25-year power production warranty, which means by year 25, your solar system is still going to be producing at least 90% of what it did on day 1 of installation. You'll also have a parts warranty that's going to cover the panels, the inverters, any other physical materials associated with the installation. And then a labor warranty will cover any roof penetrations done by your installation company. This can vary, but we typically see around 2 to 10 years for labor warranties. Homeowners insurance, when you add solar to your home, you'll definitely want to let your homeowners insurance company know. Most people don't see an increase in their rate. If you do, I would definitely ask why, and it may be worth shopping around for a new homeowners insurance company. Solar panels actually do provide a level of protection for your roof, particularly against hail or really extreme weather. So many home insurance companies consider it an asset. Solar panels are pretty low maintenance. They're not no maintenance, but they're very low maintenance. Normal precipitation is going to keep them clean. If there's a really severe dust storm or some other factors that kind of get them really dusty, you may want to call a cleaning company. There are companies that do come out and clean solar panels. Every few years, it's good to have a visual inspection done just to make sure the solar panels are working well. And nowadays, most inverters come with a really cool smartphone app, so you can track the production of your solar panels live. And if any panel is kind of out of whack or something's off, it will let you know. So if that's an option, definitely good to keep on mind. So you can always be checking to make sure your solar is producing at the highest level possible. Solar systems last quite a long time. Like I just mentioned, the warranties are usually for about 25 years, but solar systems will last longer than that, particularly if they're taken care of. Personally, I've seen solar systems on homes that have been there for 30 years, even one that was 40 years and still working fine. Keep in mind the efficiency is going to decrease over time, but solar panels will last quite a while if you take care of them. Homeowners associations. If you live in a homeowners association, in Arizona, we have a law in the books that says an HOA cannot block you from adding solar. They are allowed to put in some kind of rules and regulations. So they may have like a design review board, but the state Supreme Court has actually ruled that they cannot outright stop you from installing solar. And if you live in a historic district, I always encourage people, please check out the local historic district guidelines. They're going to vary a bit from city to city. Some cities, like in Phoenix, they may have some restrictions, like the solar panels can't be visible from the street, for example. But always good to check those guidelines to make sure that you won't be jeopardizing any historic status or losing any sort of tax benefits related to that. All right, I'm going to take a brief pause. That was solar technology before we dive into solar economics. Solar is increasingly affordable as costs have come down in the past 10 years. Significant price drops in the last 40 years, but even in the last 10 years, we've seen some really harsh drops in prices, which is great. Solar is no longer just a specialty or a boutique project that biggest, wealthiest home on your neighborhood block can afford. It really is an excellent return on investment, and the 30% federal tax credit can lower the cost even more. This helps kind of explain why solar still costs what it is today and some of the benefits of the co-op model. So in the bottom here in yellow, you'll see your system components. Costs for the physical parts of solar panels have come down pretty significantly over the last 10 years. In that little green sliver there, that's labor costs. So we've seen a slight drop in labor costs for solar, but relatively stable on that. Then this big orange chunk at the top is soft costs, mostly marketing when we're talking about soft costs. Every installing company is designed a little differently, but oftentimes we'll see in Arizona installers their customer acquisition costs. So how much they pay per customer to find a customer, to get to them and to have them sign a contract can be in the thousands of dollars per customer. And solar is really competitive. So solar installers need to do a lot of marketing usually. Compare that with the co-op model, where we gather together 50 to 100 people who are really interested in solar. We educate them about solar. We help them figure out what they need and what they want. And then we hand over that list to an installing company. The installing company saves a lot of money on marketing costs. And so they're able to pass some of those savings on to you, which is why they're able to offer bulk discounts as part of the co-op. Solar United Neighbors, we receive a $600 fee from the installer for every person who goes forward to sign a contract. And that's a pretty good bang for the installer's buck, $600 per customer, since they aren't having to spend money on marketing to find and identify all of these co-op members. You may have heard of the Inflation Reduction Act, big federal legislation that passed last year. At Sun, we're particularly excited about it because it extended and expanded the solar federal tax credit back to 30% for the next 9 years. After 2032, that will begin to step down again, but we've got that 30% tax credit and we're really excited about it. Well, we're mostly focused on the solar aspects of this law. It's worth noting there are other important parts of the Inflation Reduction Act that may be of some assistance to you. For example, if you are installing a battery storage system, you can get the 30% tax credit for that as well. That used to be the case, but you had to install solar and batteries at the same time. So now if you're just getting a battery storage system, you can get 30% off. You can get up to $1,000 for the cost of installing a home EV charger and a maximum of up to $4,000 in case you need an electrical panel upgrade for solar. There's also rebates for things like heat pumps, electric stoves, electric water heaters, electric vehicles, and much more. As part of this co-op, in addition to solar, participants will have the option to install battery storage and home electric vehicle charging if that's something they're interested in. The state of Arizona is also going to give you a 25% state tax credit. That's capped at $1,000 though, so most people just claim $1,000. Arizona has a property tax exemption law that says that the county assessor is not allowed to increase your property tax liability for installing solar, even if it does increase your property value, which is pretty cool. And then we don't pay solar taxes, we don't pay sales taxes on solar panels in the state. To dive into some specific numbers here, so we've outlined kind of some example pricing for a 4 kilowatt system and an 8 kilowatt system. Like I mentioned, the average size in Arizona is about 7 kilowatts. And this is just a sample price. It's definitely going to depend on exactly which installer is selected for this co-op, but just going down that 4 kilowatt system column, your gross cost is going to be about $12,000 with that $3 a watt figure. Be able to take off the 30% from the federal income tax credit and another $1,000 from the state, resulting in a net cost of about $7,400 for that system. And then in the bottom 3 rows, we outline the electricity savings in year 1, in year 10, and year 25, and these are cumulative figures. So as a result, by year 25 of the solar system for this 4 kilowatt example, you can see that you will save more than $20,000 essentially profit there. That's money that you would have paid to APS over 25 years if you didn't install solar. So really cool to still see those pretty significant profit margins that you can see by installing solar. It's definitely a few different options to finance your system. Of course, if you're able to pay cash up front, that's going to be the highest upfront cost, but will also maximize your savings over the lifespan of the system. I'll talk about loans in the next slide. Third-party ownership, we usually refer to as a power purchase agreement or a lease. This is essentially when a third party actually owns the solar panels on your home, and then you're leasing the power from them. This used to be a lot more popular in the past few years, but unfortunately, we've seen quite a few lease agreements that aren't very good deals for customers. Fortunately, there's even some where the leasing agreement is very poor to the point where people are paying more per month for their energy than if they had just done nothing at all. So for this reason, we strongly encourage you, if you're not able to afford the upfront cost of going solar, check out and look into your financing options. Owning the system is always going to be better than leasing it. There's a variety of grants available for going solar, mostly for businesses and nonprofits. One like we like to point out is the Rural Energy for America program. So this is funding from the USDA for farms and rural small businesses. They can receive a pretty significant portion off the cost of installing solar. Also applies to energy efficiency upgrades as well. The important thing to know with loans is that you have options, and we always encourage people to shop around to find out what works best for them. You can certainly go through the installer or not. You don't have to go through the installer. Many installing companies will have in-house financing or a preferred vendor that they like to work with. That can be a really great option for people. It definitely makes the process smoother, just going through one company for everything. But we also encourage people to check out their local bank or credit union. Sometimes they'll offer solar loans that are at a better rate than what the installing company can offer. Some people will go through a home equity line of credit or refinance their homes with interest rates at the rate that they are. Definitely urge some caution on that, but something you could look into. And then members of the co-op have access to the Clean Energy Credit Union or the Community First Credit Union. These are national credit unions that only co-op members have access to, and they provide solar loan options if you don't have an option at home. Right, another brief pause here, another brief water break for me, and then we'll dig into the solar co-op model. So Solar United Neighbors, we've run over 300 of these co-ops across the country now, and it's become a pretty well-oiled machine that we consistently see positive results from. Some of the benefits of going solar through a co-op, first we aggregate lots of consumers together. So everybody goes solar together through one competitively selected installer. This helps you save money since the installer is able to offer a bulk discount. In addition, we help support you through the process as an unbiased vendor neutral nonprofit organization. I know that going solar can be a complicated and at times daunting process. So one of the favorite parts about my job is being able to empower homeowners with all the information and tools they need to really buck the sales pitch and feel really confident about making a decision to go solar. We'll provide free expert technical guidance on all things solar. We'll help you make an informed decision you feel confident in, and we'll help connect you to solar lovers in your neighborhood so you can become part of a growing movement nationwide that has an even bigger impact on solar. And then finally, the solar co-op process. So start to finish can be anywhere from 6 to 9 months, but depends slightly on the pace of installation. We'll start over here on the left. So step one is learn. If you're watching this Solar 101, that's what you're doing. You're here in step one. You're learning about the solar co-op and about solar. After this is over, I hope that you'll go up online and sign up for the co-op. It's free to do, and it's not a commitment to go solar. You can back out at any time. If you do sign up for the co-op, I really hope that you'll share the opportunity with your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, anybody who doesn't like paying for their electric bill, which is pretty much everybody. This process works better when we have even higher numbers. The next step is the installer selection process. So once the co-op has reached critical mass, usually around 30 members, Sun will issue a request for proposals from solar installers who can bid on the group. Solar United Neighbors will receive those bids back, and we're going to check their bids, check their references, check their reviews, do our due diligence to make sure that we're only putting forward quality solar installers to the group. And then it's really important for us as an organization that we aren't the ones picking a solar installer. You are members of the co-op who actually have skin in the game. So once we've received all those bids from companies, we'll ask for volunteers to form a selection committee. And then one evening, everybody will go over those bids together with Sun's help. Like I mentioned, we're a vendor neutral organization, so we're not going to say we definitely prefer this installer over this installer, but we will answer people's questions and give as much information as we can to help members of the selection committee make a decision on behalf of the group. For this co-op, May 31st is the sign-up deadline. So the co-op's only open for a set amount of time, after the deadline, people can't sign up anymore, and those who are in the co-op have access to the co-op pricing. Once the installer is selected, they're going to begin reaching out to each member of the co-op right away to design customized proposals for each roof with that negotiated co-op pricing. At this point, once you have your proposal in hand, we hope that we've done a good job of educating you about your options. You feel really good about the proposal, about the pricing, and you've got financing lined up. I hope you'll go forward and sign a contract with the installer. If you don't want to, that is okay. Like I mentioned, there's no penalty. If you don't want to go forward, you can walk away, no hard feelings. After you sign a contract, installation, that exact pace of installation is going to vary a little bit depending on the time of year and also which installer is selected. But typically we'll see installations begin a couple months after contract signing, can be a little earlier, again, depending on the size of the group. And then finally, celebrate. I'd love to come back up to the Prescott area to celebrate once most people have their installations done, and we can look back at the impact that we were able to have in the community. To close, I recently went on a solar photo tour in Arizona. I was able to meet lots of our members who have gone solar through a co-op and kind of hear their story. I'd love to share just 3 highlights from people that I met. Deanna and Rob, they said that going through the co-op was a relief because they aren't the experts. It would have taken us a very long time to figure everything out. The co-op really was the way to go. It just makes sense. More people, more buying power. The Blaines in Tucson said that the co-op was very helpful. Sun did the hard work. They got all the bids, and we really felt like we had a support system. The process was great, and I was just so thrilled that Sun is doing this and that we found you, because it really is a lot of work to do it by yourself. And finally, the Hermans said that it's hard to weed through all of the disinformation about solar. Having support from the co-op made a world of difference. It gave us peace of mind and made us feel comfortable with moving forward, which is exactly what we're trying to do. What's next? I really hope that you've learned something during this presentation. The Quad Cities Solar Co-op is open now until May 31st. You can go up online right now and sign up for free, solarunitedneighbors.org/Quad Cities. Like I mentioned, as soon as you sign up for the co-op, we'll do that satellite roof review and get you the information that you need to start making a decision. If you do sign up for the co-op, please share it with your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers or colleagues, whoever you can think of. Our goal for this particular co-op is 50 members. So we'd really love your help in helping us reach that goal. If you have any questions about anything that I've covered today, please don't hesitate to reach out. My name is Adrian. My email is listed here, akeller@solarunitedneighbors.org. My personal phone number is 541-550-6191. Our team is here standing by, ready to answer any questions you may have about solar in general or specifically about the co-op process. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope to meet you soon and looking forward to helping lots of people in the area go solar this year.